Hey everyone, this is Mike Reese here, also known as Melting Face 3D on the socials. So today I want to talk about 4 productivity hacks that I use to help me achieve my goals, to stay on target, and to otherwise get things done. I definitely have been thinking a lot about productivity lately. I have mentioned during the show that I help manage a 3D team of around 9 to 10. And so in order for, to get things done, these are the tools and the ideas that I use in order to help achieve that. So productivity hack number 1, and this may seem pretty obvious, but that's to create goals. Specifically, SMART goals. So what are SMART goals? So SMART goals, that's an acronym for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And you can pause the video and look at what the specific definitions are with those, but to give some examples, so I use SMART goals for overall skills that I want to learn or get better at. But I also use SMART goals for projects, and you can even create multiple SMART goals for a bigger project. So let's go over a quick example. So the first one I have up here is a skill goal that someone could have. So I want to get better at UV unwrapping in Blender. So you can write down specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Then you can start to fill in those gaps. So first, let's be specific with what we mean by getting better at UV unwrapping in Blender. So, and this is all just made up, but this can be relevant to what you want to achieve. So currently, UV unwrapping takes me the greatest amount of time for every project. So I need to decrease the amount of time spent on UV unwrapping by half in order to get projects done on time, plus to align with the current industry standards. So that may not be true, but that's what this goal is for me. So being specific means what you're trying to achieve. I'm trying to cut the time in half to align with the industry standards. So that's perfect. Measurable. By January 30th of 2022, I will have unwrapped 20 prop objects using Blender, baked the maps using Marmoset Toolbag, and have each model ready for texturing. So this is measurable because there's 20 prop objects. If we got 10 done in that same amount of time, then we have not achieved our goal. So the goal is to have 20 prop objects UV unwrapped. So the A, that's achievable. So like in this case, I have the software, knowledge, and time to dedicate to this effort. So you don't want to make something that's not achievable, but you also don't want to put it out so far that you forget about it. So make sure that whatever you're doing, you can actually do within the time that you are giving yourself. So the R for SMART is relevant. So in this example, prop artists typically spend between 1 to 3 hours unwrapping and baking maps. I am currently spending 6 hours. If I want to become more efficient and compete with other artists in my field, this is a very relevant goal. So you're making sure that what you're doing is actually going to be helping you with your overall goal of becoming maybe a prop artist or a prop artist within the field. And so if prop artists typically take 1 to 3 hours and you're taking double that, then this goal is very, very relevant. So lastly, the T is time bound. So with this example, we have all 20 prop models should be unwrapped, baked, and ready for texturing by January 30th, 2022. So we're putting a line in the sand. That's when it should be done. You're giving yourself a deadline, and so now that's the goal, that's the project. So that's one example of having a skills goal that you want to achieve. But let's say that you're doing a big project. This is where you can start to break down your massive, huge project into multiple sets of goals. So we can give one more example of a big project goal is to complete this big 3D project with lots of models, textures, and complicated lighting, some animation, compositing, and to upload it to your portfolio site. So within this big project, we have 3D models, we got to texture those models, we have lighting, we have animation. So to look at that as a whole could be very daunting. And so you can start to break it down into, I'm going to create a SMART goal just for getting the 3D assets modeled. So in this case, the big project has 20 3D assets in the scene that need to be made, both the high and the low poly versions. I will model all 20 high poly assets and all 20 low poly assets by January 30th, 2022. The low poly assets will be ready for the next phase of the project, UV and wrapping. So you're now setting the stage to get those assets done. So measurable, by January 30th, 2022, I will have modeled all 20 of the 3D assets, both high and low poly versions that are needed for the big project. These will be ready for UV and wrapping when completed. So again, is this achievable? Do you have time? Do you have the tools you need? And if you don't have the tools you need, then that's something that you will need to get in order to achieve this goal. So in this case, I have the software knowledge and time to dedicate to this effort. So the R again, is this relevant? The big project requires that I model all of these assets to achieve the level of quality needed for this portfolio piece. This project will help me achieve my overall goal of having a large scale piece that can demonstrate my ability to complete a large project start to finish. So make sure that you know why you are doing the project in the first place. Having that goal in mind, having that idea of why you want to do this will help keep you motivated as well. And then lastly, again, time bound. The models for this project will be completed and ready for UV and wrapping by January 30th, 2022. Again, you're putting that line in the sand. I'm going to get those models done. That way you can hold yourself accountable. So that is what it means to create SMART goals, and I will leave a link in the description of some more examples and some of the definitions of SMART goals. Okay, the number 2 productivity hack is time, and specifically protecting your time. So one of the biggest productivity killers is to be interrupted and to break your momentum. So how do you protect your time? Well, there's one big way to protect your time, and that is to schedule everything. So what do I mean by schedule everything? Well, when it comes to your own personal schedule, that could mean putting in the calendar everything that you want to do, and that includes your free time. So by doing that, you are setting the stage to tell yourself what's important to get done. So if you're not working currently, or you're in school, you may have a pretty empty calendar, but what I would suggest starting to do is to block out those big chunks of time to model prop 1, to figure out what you want to be doing with your goals, like we talked about the first hack, but to apply that to your calendar, because by putting in the calendar, you're going to be notified to get those things done, plus to be held accountable for them. The other thing that you need to do, like as a working professional, especially if you use your calendar while you're at work, that is to also block out everything that you want to get done within the day, so that, like, if coworkers or other individuals want to schedule a meeting, or if they want to get some time with you, they don't see an open calendar to put that time into. So for example, this is my calendar for work. So as you can see, I have big chunks of these blue times where I just chunk out a couple weeks in advance that I am busy. So this does not mean that I'm not going to take a meeting within these big blue chunks of time. What it means is that when somebody goes into my calendar to look at when I'm available, they'll see that it's all taken up. And so they'll send me a message and say, hey Mike, I really need some time with you. What would be a good time for you to get together? And then now it's my time. Now, like, I am dictating how my time is being used, and not everyone else. Because if you have a full, not full calendar, but if you have an empty calendar, people will typically, they'll see an empty calendar, they'll put time in your calendar, and then you've lost control of your time and potentially the momentum that you have to get things done. But if they see that it's full, then you will have more control over your own time. So especially if you work at an office that uses calendars like the Google Calendar, block out everything a couple weeks in advance. You can see that I color code what my meetings are, and then I have blue for every major open chunk of time that I want to spend doing something. With that, you should also figure out when you are the most productive, because if you know when you're the most productive, that's when you really need to make sure that you chunk out the most high priority tasks that you need to get done for the day when you are the most productive. So for example, I am the most productive in the morning, so I try to get the hardest tasks done at the beginning of the day, where I have the more mundane and mindless tasks towards the end of the day, so that I can kind of wind down. So the big takeaway with this hack is protect your time. Okay, the third productivity hack is kind of 3 into 1, and that is to use shortcuts, to use add-ons, plus to automate where possible. So shortcuts is an easy one. If you're using Blender, definitely go into the preferences, to the keyboard shortcuts, and learn what the shortcuts are. There is a good chance that that you can save a lot of time just by understanding the keyboard shortcuts within Blender. And with that, when you use add-ons, a lot of times those add-ons have their own shortcuts to make things a lot faster. So for example, a big one that I used right away was the Pi menu activation add-on. So this is huge for me. I love it very much. And so you can see that when you activate the Pi menu, you can go through it to look at what these do, plus their shortcuts. So when it comes to getting the cursor where I want it, or getting the selection where I want it, this makes it really easy for me to stay on target, to stay on task, and to not go up into these menus that often. Your goal when learning shortcuts and when learning the add-ons, the goal is to make your time working on the art itself fast. Your goal when using shortcuts and using add-ons, that is to make sure that you're staying within the art side of things for as long as possible, and not going up into the menus and trying to dig into menus, because that will break your momentum with the art itself. So learn the shortcuts for the add-ons, and when you use an add-on, make sure that you don't just activate it to activate it, but you actively integrate it within your process so that it becomes second nature when you are using it. So the other big part of this is to automate things where possible. So there's some hardware solutions and then there's some software solutions. So by hardware solutions, that means to use the tools that you have, like a keyboard, to automate, to make macros, to do your best to make the mundane stuff as quick as possible. So like as you can see here, there's 2 that I can assign, but when it comes to using Windows, I have this G6 key is save, so I don't have to do Control S. I can just use my pinky on the left, save, 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 save. Or to create a new folder, I do that pretty often. To open File Explorer, I do that pretty often. So the things that you take multiple clicks to do, like if you have a keyboard that has the ability to do macros, or if you have a mouse that has the ability to do macros, make sure that you utilize those items to make your life easier. And if you don't, think about investing in one, because they can save you tons of times. You got keys, actions, macros, even things to open up a piece of software. It can save you a ton of time. So that's a hardware solution. That's a physical object. There are other things that are software solutions that can really save you time. 2 that I use, one is a bulk rename utility, and this saves me a lot of time, especially if you're doing render animations. This can really help you stay organized. So so in this case, I have an occlusion pass that I accidentally kind of didn't name properly, and I don't want to go into every single one of those and name it with the naming convention that I like. So the bulk rename utility, and I will leave a link to this in the description, what that can do, that can quickly rename sequences very, very quickly. So let's take a look. So with this set from 0 to 230, that name is not correct, because this is the occlusion map. It's too long. I just want to name it I just want to name it AO. So I'm going to grab those I want to rename. I'm going to right click, bulk rename here. And this looks like a very complicated menu, but it's actually very easy once you get used to it, and there are other tutorials on it. So I suggest watching those, but in this case, let's go. So we're going to rename all of these. There we go. So that's what we want to rename. We're going to go to this replace section. We're going to replace the thing that I copied with AO underscore, and you can see in real time what it's doing. So that is exactly what I want. It's a much cleaner name. I'm going to hit rename. I'm going to hit OK. And then now you can see that I have renamed those 230 frames very, very quickly with something that is much better. So we can even do the same thing with the Z depth. See how it has V-Ray, Z depth. I just want to name this section depth. So I'm just going to copy that. We're going to go back into here. There's that. And I'm going to name this depth with an underscore at the end. So now I'm just going to go to the set that I want to rename. You can see here, once I click on it, that's exactly true. Oh, and actually I want to keep that. There we go. Because I want to keep the numbering. So make sure that you are, so now, yeah, so make sure that you have everything correct. But this would take like an hour to do if you do this by hand. You don't want to do anything by hand that you don't have to. So this is what I want. Rename. Okay, perfect. So definitely automate where possible, especially when it comes to naming. The other piece of software that I use that helps me do things quickly is something called Post Haste. And again, I will leave this in the I will leave the link to that in the description. But Post Haste, what that is, and this would be especially useful for like any 3D artist that does projects, is that what that will do is it can quickly make project folders using a template. So like if we have a template that I use called 3D template, these are folders that I always create when making new projects. And so what you can do is create a template. You can even drop in template files, like a blend file that will always be used, or a ZPR file, or like any kind of file that you want. You can name those templates, put them in your template, and then when you create a new project, you can make sure that you have what you want on there. I personally just want the name of the project, and then this. So then you can go to create project, and then you'll describe where it goes. If I put it into my temp folder, it brings it up. So now I have the name project, which you can name it. So if I did another one, and I said this is, this is project 02, or prop project, create project, same place, it opens it up. So now if we look at here, we have project 1, and it has all those folders that I've already, that I always tend to create, and then same with project 02. And so that makes it really, really easy to very quickly, make things, to make folders and folder structures that you typically do for every single project with just a click. So those are the kind of items that you can use to save time with mundane tasks. So definitely check those out. Okay, and the fourth and final productivity hack that I use is using task management tools. So there are a lot out there that can be used. Personally, I use Asana, but there are others like Monday.com. But task management tools, which there are free versions of a ton of these, can help you, again, stay on target. So the first hack was creating goals. Those goals can actually then go into a task management software like Asana, that then you can utilize to check those things off to keep yourself like on schedule. So if we look at something like Asana, you can see that these are my tasks, these are projects, these are all the things that I need to get done with, within a certain amount of time. And so if we go to project tasks, you can see that you can set up, templates that make things very, very easy and get those assigned to yourself or different individuals if you're on a team. But task management software has helped me out a ton. So there are other, task management softwares, like I said. There are some that I use to do like mind mapping and brainstorming to get ideas out that can also help me stay productive. So those include like items like Whimsical. So Whimsical is a great piece of software that I use to figure out how I want a project to be laid out, how I want a workflow to be utilized and created. So currently, this is the PBR workflow that I'm trying to establish for my team, how it's going to be used, where I need to be doing some training, where we need to upgrade, all that kind of stuff. This has helped me lay out those materials, but this has also helped me create whole workflows to understand what I'm trying to achieve, but then also to understand where the gaps are. So definitely use items like, so there's Whimsical, there's a board created like Miro, which is also really, really fantastic, and they're all collaborative, and so those will also be linked in the description. But there are so many tools available to you to help you be as productive, but also to think in the way that you think the best, so that you can start to achieve what you want to achieve. So don't be afraid to get out there and to use some of these tools to figure out how you like to work, then to leverage these tools in order for you to work faster. So there are other tools that we can talk about. So like I said, Asana, there's Miro, Whimsical, Trello that has like a Kanban board type situation. So those will all be linked in the description. But there are lots of tools at your disposal, so I suggest you use them in order to help stay productive. And that is the final hack that I use to stay productive. Definitely within the comments, if you have tools that you use, please leave me a comment. Help spread the word. Or if there is any other ways that you tend to stay productive, I would love to hear about them. So please let me know. Thanks for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and keep on learning.